The sudden leap between PS and D, or between the second creative stage of incubation towards the third stage of illumination, reflects a climax in the art of not knowing. I will try to explain what supports this transition. Without memory or desire is a definition expressed in the negative. Without memory and without desire. When Bion looks for the positive term and tries to formulate what the state of mind is, in positive language, he chooses the word faith. Faith in O. Faith in O is not faith in something, but a stop to the constant efforts to try and control reality so that it works in our favor. A mixture of disappearance, surrender, and devotion is required. In fact, this sudden creative transition depends on a leap of faith or even leaps of faith. These jumps allow us to dedicate ourselves to the process, release the known, and jump into the space with the faith that something will emerge, something will happen. It requires training since it is not a simple act. In a way, it requires the elimination of self. Dr. Esther Peled has a beautiful article on the concept of infinity in Bion's thinking and in Buddhism. She writes that this movement, this leap of faith, actually represents the abandonment of the self. The self is required to sacrifice itself. The action required for it is an action that rebels against the I, since it abandons the I and its possessions. I want to read that again. Dr. Peled says that this leap of faith requires the abandonment of the self. The self is required to sacrifice itself. The action required for it is an action that rebels against the I, since it abandons the I and its possessions. I want to stop and explain this quote, as it's not that simple. The therapist is considered a specialist, and they are paid because they supposedly have possessions that can help the patient. But this expectation can put pressure and limit the therapist's original thinking, intuition, and creative processes. The therapists themselves must sacrifice their identification as a basket of ready-made properties, even if it requires risking their sense of identity and value. They have to get near to the 0 point, to the beginner's mind, and allow the workings of formation processes, which cannot be controlled or rushed. If we recall the story in the Old Testament about the sacrifice of Isaac, Abram took his son Isaac because God commanded him to sacrifice him, and we take it as a demonstration of the art of not knowing and leaps of faith. We can treat this story from a morally neutral point of view and determine that Abraham had to make an act of faith. Following the theme of what Dr. Peled says, he agrees to sacrifice his essence and what is most sacred to him. In the Old Testament, God tells Abraham, "Take your son, whom you love." Abraham agrees to take his son and sacrifice him. But when he goes to the altar, exactly at the moment of truth, when he risks the most, a ram appears, and Abraham does not sacrifice Isaac, but the ram instead. It is very similar to the dynamic I described of devotion, an act of faith, a release from the objective, an abandoning of one's essence, and desisting from oneself. Then, in the moment of truth, when you think that everything is already lost, something happens. In the language of Moses and Aaron, where Moses represents a connection to O and Aaron represents one to K, it can be said that Aaron, the conscious part, has to lose consciousness. When this part dies or remains without consciousness, it is possible to connect with the reality of Moses, to become one with the reality of O. Aaron then wakes up having within himself or in his hands new knowledge, knowledge related to O. The Aaron who fell asleep or lost consciousness is not the same Aaron who woke up. A change came over him. Not only a change at the level of knowledge, he himself changed. He loosened the screws and became liquid within the reality of Moses, and then almost instantly came back to consciousness with information from the unknown. This is the flow we are aiming for. I'm going to give an example from the world of sexuality. I know it's a bit stereotypical. Let's say a man wants to have sex with his wife, and let's say she tells him, "Not now, I'm worried, I'm upset about things. I don't want to think about it." Such situations happen. What is the best way for this man to approach her? With the help of these concepts, I formulate the following. When the man can let go of his self-interest and listen to the woman because he cares about her, a better result might occur. He should not be listening to her only so as to gain from it later or so that his interests work. As long as he can let go of the goal, of the interest, of memory and desire, and just be there and listen to her, he will have a better chance that maybe at the end of the movement something will happen. But if he cannot let go and listens only from I listen so that later we get to do something frame of mind, his chances are reduced. I use this example because Bion also talked about pairings between male and female parts. It demonstrates that to reach the goal, you must let go of your motives to reach it and unite with concern and attention in the present moment. As long as you have more capacity to get to this space, there's a possibility, yet no promise, that something will happen. As long as you find yourself hooked on hidden interests, the matter is lost, or there will be coercion there. So we are in a world of a particular faith and self-devotion. These support the movement that Bion tries to trace.